Oh, hello. I feel like Brandon's just going to run with this. Okay, well, we're just running with this. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. It's Gabrielle Celeste. Welcome, welcome. And guess what? It's a solo episode. You guys, I cannot believe how many times we've tried to record this together and me separately from my sisters and so forth. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about 34 spiritual lessons learned by the age of 34 because guess what? My birthday is coming up and that's what we're just going to do. Because I was like, okay, this dropped in the other day. I was like, why not? But before we get to that, so I tried recording with Brina this past weekend and it just wasn't working. I just tried to record right before this on my computer and with my headset and all the things. And I got 11 minutes in and then it just cut me off. So then I called up Brina. I was like, I need to come get your computer, right? Because this is literally the Thursday before it drops. So that's how committed we are, as we like to say, continuously and quite often. So, anyways, here we are recording. And I just wanted to say also thank you to all of our listeners for your continued support over the years. In the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of positive feedback about just, people that I've read for that I've met through the podcast and who really appreciate just our work. And really it's the way that we like to, I guess, be in service to you all, and also just to capture our process and give real-time feedback of what's going on and in our personal lives and our professional lives and so forth. And so, yeah, I wanted to make mention of that. And then also kindly remind you that this month of June, if you're listening to this in real time, I am offering 50% off on my readings for basically mid-year sessions. So if your year-ahead reading does no longer resonate, or if you feel like you jumped a timeline because you're doing shadow work, or maybe the energy started to go in a different direction, those are ideal for you. They're available through Etsy, and or you can do a live reading with me. And I think that's the last sale I'm going to have for readings this year, you guys, because I'm trying to do something new every month in my business just to keep that creativity flowing and going. And I plan on offering different types of readings where the focus is a little bit oriented, maybe not in the traditional sense like we're reading you per se. And then I do tend to offer readings and sales on Black Friday, but I don't know if I'm going to do that this year because I'm looking to do something different. So take advantage while you can. I think at the time of drop, it's available for 2 more weeks. So let's get to it. We're going to be discussing 34 spiritual lessons learned by 34, and we're going to break them up. I'm totally looking at a monitor, by the way. So if you're catching this on YouTube, I apologize for the glances and so forth. We're going to be breaking them up into sections of self-worth and personal power, healing and consciousness, money, security and freedom, relationships and connection, purpose and fulfillment, trusting life, and then additional lessons. And one might bleed into the other. A lot of these were also, I would say, like more fairly recent than maybe other lessons. And I'll try to speak to that as I'm going through them. So, number 1, seeking approval outside of yourself is the fastest way to give away your power. You guys, this one's recent. I don't think I realized how I was still doing that. And if anything, this hurts you, and it did for me, it hurts you more on an emotional level than anything else, because I don't think I realized how much I was doing that until I returned from Greece, because I was basing my standards of success and living off of the person that I was prior to doing all of this healing. And going to Greece, I'm still integrating, and I don't know that I'm going to move in the same way that I did before, in the sense of just like needing to get things done, being in masculine, energy. And not that I don't have that down by any means, because I did it for so long, but I just want to move differently as a result. And, I read for myself after coming back from Greece, and my guides were pretty much like, you are going to get substantially busy in the near future. So like enjoy your break. So in the meantime, I think just those moments for rest, have just been more important to me than they have in the past, and I just value them differently. And the more time that has passed since I've gone on that trip, I feel even more happy that I went, but I also have so many more takeaways in terms of like how fulfilling that trip was, because it was so in alignment for me to go. I was talking with my girlfriends today earlier. We do a mastermind, and we've been meeting for the last 3 years, and we all run our own spiritual businesses. And I was talking to them and I was like, how like you go to a vacation, or you go on a vacation and then it was just like so amazing, and then you go back and it doesn't quite hit the same way as it did the first time, because when you were there when you went for that first time and your consciousness basically expanded in a new way, it's because you're chasing that feeling that you had when you initially went. And yeah, that's not to say you can't find it again, but sometimes you're not meant to be in certain places that you travel to. So, like, if it's easy, if it's meant to be there, if you're meant to be there, if it's meant to happen, it's going to bring you a different type of fulfillment that you probably wouldn't have felt beforehand, or in another way, or in another place if you maybe weren't supposed to be there. So, that is lesson number one. Number two, people would judge what they don't understand, yet are too often afraid to go after what they want themselves. People fear what they don't know. They judge you. They judge you. People judge you regardless, unconsciously or consciously. And I don't think I realized how much fear is really behind judgment, and that's naturally associated with your ego and so forth. And that actually kind of bleeds into the next one. So they are kind of similar but different. So, number three is how you judge others is really a reflection of how you're judging yourself. So, anytime you're judging another person, you better be looking right at yourself because there's probably something there for you to consider and look at. And in many ways, people who are judging you are just judging themselves and wishing they took the steps to better themselves that you're actually doing for yourself, but they don't have the courage to do them for themselves anyway. So, say that 10 times fast. But yeah, judgment, I've learned a lot about judgment. Honestly, when you are judging someone, and this is something that was not necessarily recent, but I've been paying more thought and heed to, is it doesn't even feel good. Like, think about how you feel when you're talking shit about someone. Sometimes, like, yeah, it's fun. Sure, we'll give you that. And sometimes, oh, do people deserve to be talked about? I mean, ask me when I'm mad. So it's a different version of me that you're getting. You're getting a spicy little cancer. But it doesn't feel good because you're naturally putting yourself into a lower frequency and vibration. And there's probably something there for you anyway. So think about that one. Number four, giving away your power is a way in which you drain your life force energy. So, ways in which this happens: when you make yourself small, when you allow yourself to be disrespected, when you hide your light from being seen, especially when people can benefit from the help and the light that you have to offer. You're not only hurting yourself, but you're draining your literal life force energy in the process. And if you are a spiritual practitioner or if you're just a spiritual being, your energy is your currency. Let me repeat that again. Your energy is your currency. Now that, and this is something I've noticed as well, and not necessarily a lesson, but the higher I've gone in consciousness over this last year, the more I've noticed like how fatigued I am, how I don't feel good if I'm supposed to say no, but yet I really say yes, and I didn't necessarily mean to. And if I'm in places I'm not supposed to be, like my energy is so taxed and I feel depleted. And usually when you feel depleted, it's probably because you're not supposed to be there, and then you're unconsciously or maybe consciously draining your energy in the process. So, something to think about. Number five, how you take care of yourself is a reflection of your self-worth. I mean this physically and I mean this emotionally and maybe mentally too. Physically, how you take care of yourself is going to say a lot about you, I think. And so long as you're doing the best that you can, I think is what counts. But if you're reading energy, please take care of yourself and go to the gym and lift weights and preserve that muscle. Because if you're not, you're kind of fucked. I'm not a medical or legal practitioner, but your body holds on to so much. It is the greatest divination tool that you have. Taking care of your physical body is just so important. And I feel like I learned this one when I was younger. Like, I've been in the gym for a long time. And I think it really just does show a lot about how you take care of yourself. And also just like, I mean, I don't know if this is like an age thing. I actually felt my age quite a bit when I turned 33. That's when it kind of like, I was like, oh my God, like I actually feel my age for once. But I've been paying attention to those in their 60s and their 70s and just how mobile they are and how easily they do or they don't get around. And I wondered if maybe a lot of that could have been prevented by how much better they could have taken care of themselves when they were younger or made different choices. So yeah. And in terms of like mentally and emotionally, you're never going to hear me call myself stupid. You're never going to hear me talk badly about myself in ways where like, oh, like I'm so this or so that, when it's really disparaging and it's negative. And I think that says a lot about just building up your self-worth or not. So how you take care of yourself in all the ways. physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, mentally. I think I said that twice, mentally. Going through the layers of consciousness. You should go listen to that episode. It's like 10 or 15 back if you haven't already done so. Um, it's going to pay off in all the ways, and it shows if you don't. Number 6, self-worth is a combination of facing fear by doing hard things repeatedly and also feeling your feelings. So 2 parts to that, right? Well, before I became a reader, I definitely said that, or when I had first started, fear definitely tried to hold on to me. And I don't think I had self-worth or confidence as a reader until, I'm not even kidding you guys, until I hit about 300 readings. And the only way that I got there was by like doing the damn thing. And it's consistency, it's masculine energy, it's putting yourself out there, making yourself uncomfortable. Like that's what's actually going to build up your confidence, which is your self-worth, your self-esteem in many ways. And it just is. I don't know any other way. I don't know how you can beat around that. So unless you can really hype yourself up and like truly mentally believe it without doing that, I don't know. If you figure that one out, let your girl know. I'm not entirely sure. Um, and feeling your feelings, there's a lot of power in feeling your emotions and not attaching to them, but instead observing what they have to share for you and show you. Um, and in that process, your solar plexus is really benefiting from them as well. So, or benefiting from that as well. So, as human beings, we're not, I mean, the most natural thing for us is to actually feel our feelings. And that's the last thing that we want to do, even though that's like literally what we're meant to do. So, there's so much like peace and happiness and spaciousness that I have within myself after going through the purge that was 2025 and the bridge between 32 to 33. And in that process, I really feel like I am a more whole version of myself because I did that. Number 7, this is a nice little segue based off of what we just discussed. Fear and why you are feeling it is usually pointing you in the direction that you're meant to go. Fear is naturally associated with ego, with shadow consciousness, with the darkness, and it doesn't want you to ascend. And everyone has their own little personal flavor of fear, which in shamanism, at least the way that my shaman describes it, is fear is trickster. Like you have your own embodiment of it, and your trickster is your subconscious mind. And so once you really understand your subconscious mind and your personal flavor of fear, you're not going to have the same relationship to it. Usually when you go through like one really bad dark night, which has been my personal experience. So, yeah. And then number 8 for this section is fearing not reaching your full potential, and the idea of dying before you really gave yourself the opportunity to do so should be motivation enough, and is motivation enough. And I would say this one's actually kind of new in the last 3 months. I don't want to look back with regrets, and I don't want to not reach my full potential because I know I have a lot of it. And I don't think I would have arrived there. And I want to say this until I had done really a lot of substantial shadow work, and have like, at least even thought about that. So I just want to say that like that I would say is my newfound motivation. Whereas before maybe it was fear that was really propelling me forward. And it's a totally different energy that I've invited into my life as a result. So hopefully some of those got you thinking before we jump to the next one. So the next section is healing and consciousness, and they kind of bleed into each other. So number 9 is happiness is never truly found unless you go inward and understand your subconscious mind. And it's so funny. I'll say, I don't know if she likes her name to be public, so that's why I don't share it. But my shaman likes to say that happiness is a series of right action and right timing. And she's right. I don't think I was really fully content until I understood my emotions and I understood my actions. And I really thought about if it was right for me to move in one way or another, because before I would just be doing for the sake of doing in many ways. And I don't think I was really, also to that point, I don't think I was fully content until I released my emotions during my dark night. And that would be like not just the emotions I was feeling in that time, but that purge was also like purging previous versions of self, like my teenage self or my inner child. You know, in a lot of ways, I mean, I guess this is a vulnerable share. I think I've been pretty open about it, and I'm not asking for any pity in saying this or empathy. But in a lot of ways, when I was younger, and sometimes I feel this way too, especially as I'm seeing this aging process, I don't necessarily feel like as pretty as maybe other people think me to be, and I don't really feel pretty at times at all. It's definitely a hormonal thing. Depends on when you're catching me in the cycle. Depends on where the moon is at because I'm a Cancer. But I definitely feel like grieving and processing and understanding why those younger versions of me were made to feel that way has allowed me to release those emotions. And as a result, I have felt substantially happier in the process and more at peace than maybe I have in the ever before, so to say. So, yeah. Number 10, what your parents do not heal becomes yours to heal. That is ancestral healing at its core. I feel like that one's pretty direct. Sometimes when I get like I bicker with my dad specifically, and it's funny because like we have a lot of love. You guys have heard him on the show. He's been on. I have compassion for my parents in general for them not doing this work for themselves, but also for for the generation for their kids, right? But I have compassion from it from the sense of like it's not to not excuse them for it, but it's more just to like they did the best at what they could in just terms of like trying to survive and have their basic needs met because they were immigrants and they were setting my sisters up to have more than, they were afforded because they were poor. They were substantially poor. So they did the best that they could. And so now I feel like I have the opportunity to do that and on an energetic level to set my kids up for that. And it's so funny. My dad's like, these are like some of the conversations and bickerings that we have. He's like, no one time you had to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, well, I just don't want my kids to take it on. Like my kids, if I decide to have them and kids in general, if I can prevent them from having to face some of this that I've had to deal with it within myself, like I'm going to do that because they're also going to come with their own soul contracts and they're also going to go through their own grief, anger, hurt, all the things that come with being human because that's also part of just being human, right? So all this to say, they better not fuck up my hard work as a result. But yeah, number 10, what your parents don't heal is going to become yours to heal in many ways. So number 11, your family is often the reason for needing to heal and the greatest beneficiary of your healing as well. So my girlfriend, she was like, your family's the first one to hurt you. And I was like, fuck, that's so true. It's so true. I really believe that we choose our family members. I believe we set up the soul contracts, the life experiences that we are meant to have. And it's all by design. And I think you do that before you incarnate in many ways. So, yeah. Ugh, that ancestral healing. That bleeds really nicely into number 12. The healing never ends. Period. Do that little thing with the thumb and the pointer finger that the Gen Zs do. What do they do? They tap it. It doesn't end, but it does change and it does get easier because your toolbox expands to be able to handle whatever challenges or growth opportunities you are being faced with. So there's that. Number 13, it is a gift to become conscious. So conscious is also the same as like saying you're becoming enlightened or, you're going inward or, all of those terms that are commonly associated in this space. Because ultimately what you're doing by doing the shadow work is like you're choosing yourself in the process. So that's invaluable. You can't pay for that. You can't find it elsewhere. Period. And then number 14, your business attracts those who mirror your own healing journey. So past, present, or future. Those that you've helped or are helping, it's because you've already experienced that. You're currently going through something, or it's kind of a preview for what's coming your way in the future. So fun. Next section, money, security, and freedom. So money's been a big thing for me and a lot of my clients. And I think it's just maybe because Chiron is going into Taurus at this point, or it's the time of recording towards the end of the month. And it's about the 17th of June. So it's giving us a preview for, it might be the 17th of June. It goes back into Aries on September 17th, if I remember correctly. But anyways, all this to say, it's going to be in Taurus where it hasn't been in some time for this summer, and it's giving us an energetic preview for 2027 and about 7 years or so after the fact. And I really think that money is like in general, like our money system is going to change as a result because Taurus rules over resources and security and food. And I mean, we'll see. Maybe we'll see a financial collapse in that period of time too. It kind of seems like things are headed in that direction if you're here in the States. So, no set. But yeah, money's definitely been a theme in the collective for sure. And so, number 15, money and safety are inherently linked. So, I might change my mind on that one. Safety is an inside job, but in today's society, money's a tool that you need. And I think that's sometimes an area that gets lost in the spiritual space where you can become really ungrounded and you don't place some value on it, and you don't maybe respect it the way that you should. And this is when I say you, I'm saying this is just what I've observed from living in San Diego, which has a lot of like spiritual hippies, to observing just people and how they move in this space and their maybe attachment or detachment to it, and that being a motivating factor for them even getting into this work to begin with, because there is money to be made in this industry. So I could do like a whole workshop on money. We'll see. I feel like I've gotten the ask for that, and I might do that in the fall, so stay tuned. But yes, money and safety are inherently linked. And then number 16, money is an important tool and resource to understand and respect, but it doesn't bring you happiness, although it certainly helps. Money is not designed to bring you happiness. It's a tool for exchange. If you're relying on it for your happiness, it does make things easier, I will say that. But you're going to always feel like something is missing if you're relying on it for your happiness. I think the best examples are like billionaires. For them, it's never enough, right? And again, if you're in the States where we have most of our listeners, the country is literally built on not having enough. And it's part of the culture. It's just how the size society here moves for the most part, especially where I'm located, which is in Southern California. But billionaires, I'm like, they must be so fucking bored. And I just wonder what makes them happy and what their attachment style is to money. So, anyways, billionaires, study them. There are no ethical billionaires. Number 17, you're never too old to make smart money moves. I will repeat that. You're never too old to make smart money moves. So, pretty straightforward. And then number 18, time freedom is probably definitely your greatest resource. People often tend to confuse that money might be that, but it's actually your time, because you will exchange money to free up your time, to have more of time, to buy time. And time freedom is usually what most people are chasing anyway. Okay, relationships and connection, next section. Number 19, you learn who your true friends are when you're in the thick of your own shit. If you listen to the show over the last maybe 20 months or so, you have paid close attention to the little tidbits that I've shared about having to just drop people, or people just kind of falling off to the wayside when maybe they didn't show up for me in the ways that I had shown up for them during their struggles and challenges and their shadow work. And I think that is just true. Like, people are going to show you their true colors when you're in a time of need. And most often times than not, the only person that's coming to save you is yourself. So, yeah. Number 20, have sex with who you want, just so long as it doesn't negatively affect your self-worth. This, I feel like I've learned this through observation, I guess personal experience too. I would say that. But and it's not a judgment if you're doing this, but oftentimes I've noticed, and this has come up in a lot of one-to-one sessions, I have, for background context, I have Saturn in the 12th, I have Pluto in the 8th, and they square each other. So naturally, in the context of my business, I attract a lot of females specifically, because I'm meant to work with females who are not so comfortable with their sexuality, who have low self-worth when it comes to maybe the men that they've slept with or partners that they've slept with, have had a lot of trauma in that area. And so what I've noticed in terms of like one main observation is, if, you're giving the got the up, which no judgment, go have a good time. Just, I guess, be aware of if it's going to affect your self-worth, or if the driving force for you behind it is to feel accepted or wanted, or to avoid feeling rejection. So anything that's going to negatively impact you, having that awareness in relationships so that it doesn't thereby negatively affect your divinity and your connection and so forth, or impact it, I think is really important, especially as a female doing this work. Number 21, the little things are what really matter most and where you're likely to find the deepest meaning. The times of quiet, the times of peace, the times where I'm just like reading my book at like 2 in the afternoon, or just sitting out on the grass and grounding, or just being able to pick up and go get ice cream with my nephew in the middle of the day and still come back and work, or not having to ask for a whole month off. It wasn't a whole month, but it was like 14 days when I went to Greece in total for the time that I took off, and not needing that permission or authority to give myself that type of autonomy is really where I found a lot of my meaning, and fulfillment and so forth. And I'm thinking about one of my favorite artists. His name is Dominic Fike. Super underrated in my opinion, but he used to be like very broke, and he didn't have food. He didn't have access to running water. All he had access to and what he owned was like the clothes on his back. And this was because I think his parents really struggled with addiction and whatnot, from what I've read in interviews and so forth. He's a millionaire now, by the way. But he said something like, those times when you literally have nothing and you're just kind of struggling, it's like those are the times that really matter the most, because you learn so much about self-reliance. You learn so much about how, like, the divine's going to support you, the freedom that you get by not having an attachment to anything, even though maybe the circumstances in which you find them are not the greatest. You find yourself in those circumstances are not the greatest, I should say. You learn a lot about what you do and you don't need. And oftentimes that can be like, oh, I don't need this person, or I don't need this materialistic possession, or and so forth. But there's a lot of insights and information and growth that you can get in that period of growth, not knowing what the next thing is for you that lies ahead in terms of where you're going, your direction, your path. And I guess moments of stillness is, I guess, what I'm getting at. It's just those moments of peace where you really like pause, you're present in the now moment. You get a lot from that. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. The next section is purpose and fulfillment. So number 22, your job is not your identity work. Solar plexus, you guys, the solar plexus theme for me in this last year. I'm convinced, and I will say this, root and solar plexus, I think, are the most challenging energy centers to work with. Sacral benefits by doing the work on the other two, on those two that I just mentioned, when it comes to the lower three, but like solar plexus it's a lot. But yeah, your job is not your identity. One thing that I really like noticed is those who come into retirement and they don't know what to do with themselves. It's because for so long they were just attached to what they did for work. If you first meet someone, like, you're going to talk about the weather, you're going to talk about what you do for work, right? Just knowing and having a detachment to that, and knowing that you are not just what you do for work is really important. And I think finding what you enjoy outside of your work is also really important, because otherwise your identity, your solar plexus, your core, your stomach, your source of power, all of those things is going to maybe be negatively affected by that as a result. Speaking of stomach, 23, what you eat affects how you think. Gut to brain connection is so true. There's something to it. Oh man, I think I started getting really bad anxiety when I was working corporate, and then I went super clean in my diet, and that's when my intuition was clearer than ever. Then I like got off Instagram for 2 years, and then you know the story from there. But I remember feeling like shit after I would have certain meals, and probably because the food here is so processed, but in general, like how you eat really affects how you think, the information that you receive, and so forth. And in this last year, because I've done so much solar plexus work, even how much I eat has changed, or what I need to sustain me. But that has been something that has not been true for me, is if I'm eating really poorly, I'm not going to feel good about myself. I'm not going to have good thoughts. I will have intrusive thoughts like Virgos or Geminis. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be so mindful of what you're eating, especially if you're reading energy for other people. 24, gratitude is the most underrated way of manifesting. Facts. 25, reaching your full potential requires a willingness to move towards what scares you. So if you're not willing to make changes, or if you're not willing to confront and face your fear, it's going to continue to run your life. So I think just being somewhat in a place of acceptance, not necessarily surrender, just being okay with whatever comes ahead, I think is also really important. And I feel like that's also where another place that I've arrived to in the last 3 months as well, and just being more comfortable with the unknown, what lies ahead, and not needing to know, which I think is ironic because I'm a predictive reader. So, yeah. The next section is trusting life. So 26, lack of expectations while still doing the thing anyway allows the universe to work for you and show you how good it can actually get. Not trying to control, which for me is a big thing, especially because control is rooted in, fear. It gives the universe more space for you to work with, for them to work for you, honestly, for it to work for you. If we're going to personify it as a general energy, which I think it is. I don't think it has a gender, but I really think that when you are just okay and open to whatever is going to come your way, it could, and usually it is, so much better for you than you would ever could have imagined for yourself. So, yeah. Number 27, if you have to force something, it probably isn't for you. I think I had 2 opportunities to go to Europe before I went recently, and it didn't quite feel 100% accurate for me. But I will tell you guys, this Greece trip that I went on, I think I spent $2,000 on it in total. And I think that, no, I know that. I know it's because I was supposed to be there. And also, I used points. Everyone's asking, how did you only pay $64 for your flight? I had points, guys. I had points. And it's a fairly cheap country to visit, at least where we were at. But, and also, like, compared to California prices and so forth. But, anyways, it felt aligned and everything just worked out. Like, the theme of the trip was asking you shall receive. And literally, like, I needed a taxi, or I needed, like, I don't know, something to come through. I think I needed like cash on hand, and then I would get like an order or something like that, even though I was technically off. It just, when you're supposed to be doing something, it's going to be easy, period. And it didn't necessarily feel that way prior to potentially going to Europe on those 2 other experiences or opportunities I had had. 28, fear is often a compass rather than a warning sign. So we talked a little bit about that. So it's really, again, acquainting yourself with fear and how fear is trying to hook you and not giving it that power and not giving away your power. Fear. Fear is the big one. Learned a lot about fear in this last year, which I'm sure you're picking up what I'm putting down by these examples. And then 29, life tends to unfold best when you participate fully without trying to control every outcome. Again, for me, control, big thing. But when you can really just show up for yourself and be in the now moment, there's so much that can come for you in the best of ways. And then the additional lessons, number 30, time in solitude will bring you more peace than you realize. Stillness. I cannot emphasize how much more time of stillness I need for myself on a day-to-day basis. Especially the more that I climb in consciousness, I'm like, why am I so tired? Why am I okay with doing nothing? Why do I just not want to leave the house and be okay with myself? And it's dangerous because it's good to leave the house and have that balance, but I'm okay with being in my own energy. And I think that's the thing that I've also noticed is that people don't like to be alone, because when you're alone, it's like those intrusive thoughts, fear, all the things start creeping in that you're meant to really sit with in your emotions. But again, if you sit with your emotions, and you sit with that fear, there's so much beauty and growth on the other side of just, observing it and letting it move through you. Speaking of that, number 31, you do not feel fear in nature. I don't think I've ever been in nature aside from like thinking about animals, but I've never been in nature like on a hike or walking or sitting outside on the grass, being in the sun, or just anything like, and I've had fear. So fear is a natural way to combat fear is being in nature. And then 32, identify ways of being and value fulfillment. And that's going to allow you to find what brings you specifically happiness. So ways of feelings, ways of being, that is what you're chasing. It's not necessarily anything external to you. It's more what's the internal feeling that you're trying to catch and mimic and operate from there. And that's how you're going to see that be reflected back to you in your external world. 33, consciousness, aka alignment, changes everything. So you can't go backwards. You can't go backwards. You might say, like, I wish that I was or could be the person I was before this and this happened, or before this person entered my life. But once your consciousness expands, once you really dabble into the subconscious mind, once you work with your fear lodged into your subconscious mind, you can't go backwards. And I don't think I've reached a point where really wanted to go backwards. Like, it's my life has only gotten better, and it allows me to, like, this path that I'm walking, as many of you are, if not all of you listening to this episode, you can show up better for yourself by having that spiritual toolbox, so to speak. And you just find that you get better and better as a result of doing so. So I think you can only win from doing so, is what I'm trying to say. And then number 34, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationship with yourself. So, yep, it all starts with you. What did they say? As above, so below, as within, so without. There's another piece to that idiom and saying, or the old adage, I should say. And it is so true. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful for you all. She's turning 34 on summer solstice. This episode's going to drop on the 16th. So, anyways, be sure to send some birthday love. You don't really have to, I'm just saying that, but find a little tidbit, something that I actually recognized. And I was like, I would love to hear people's thoughts on this. But the sun in astrology, the planet, so when it's in a birth chart, it actually represents your ego consciousness, right? And I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, well, we celebrate a solar return, which is a birthday, which is where the sun comes back to the exact place in the sky as it was at the exact moment of your birth, right? And I'm like, okay, ego consciousness. So we're celebrating our egos, but it's more like a remembrance of self. We're celebrating like who you are, and you get to live another year, you get to live another day, and so forth. And it just had me thinking, I think I feel more at peace now than I ever have before, because I've done so much ego work, which is innately shadow work. And I feel like more comfortable, I guess, celebrating my birthday than maybe I have in the last 2 years. And I think the more that you explore your consciousness, specifically your ego consciousness, it can only get better. And I feel like maybe birthdays will get better as a result. So, anyways, I'm not sure if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but I had that thought the other day, and I was like, I feel like there's something to celebrating ego consciousness and the expansion of it or the dissolution of it. And maybe birthdays were meant to symbolize that. So, yeah. But anyways, please leave a review. We prefer them on Apple. We'll take anything that we get, 5 stars. We're so grateful that you're here. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.